Welcome back, team. How's it going? Today we're going to be reviewing the best Teemo players in the world at the moment from Korea and NA. And I know what you're probably thinking, you can't believe I'm making a piece of content on a range top laner. And that's just because, to be perfectly honest, Teemo is one of the only range tops in the entire game who is a strong champion from Iron all the way through to Challenger, so definitely worth making a bit of content on. So we're going to be reviewing the lane, the runes, itemization, everything you need to know about how these players make Teemo work in Challenger so consistently, season after season. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Hey everyone, real quick before we start the video, if you've been missing out on my champion guides, I've been uploading some exclusive ones to the TLA website. So just this month alone, I've made a full in-depth Kale and Aatrox guide. So if you want to check those out, but also receive coaching from myself and Alois and many other coaches, the link will be in the description. I hope to see you there. So we're going to be starting off by going through the rune pages, but it's important to note, even though I do have 3 on the screen right now, you're going to be running Pressy Attack over 95% of the time. This is Teemo's default rune, your bread and butter, and you should be running it in most of your games. It's a really good mix between short trading and extended trading, where Teemo is relatively good at both, it just depends on the situation, but PTA really gives you that perfect middle ground that Teemo's looking for. So on that page, you're going to be running either Presence of Mind or Absorb Life. The Teemo one tricks are kind of at odds about that. I would say Presence of Mind is just straight better, as Absorb Life is way too nerfed. Now you're going to be running Alacrity every single game. That goes without saying. He's a really good user of attack speed, and he's not really an ability haste type of champion, and of course Bloodline is useless. And then you can go either Last Stand or Cut Down. So Cut Down into really beefy matchups like Cassante, Time Kench, anything like that. But Last Stand generally, especially in volatile matchups where they have room to trade onto you. Now for the grass page, this is normally used into really tanky matchups, like a Malphite or a Gragas, something along those lines, where not only is it kind of tricky to proc PTA if they play well, you kind of need the extra sustain that this page will give you, or you can get poked out by their easy just Q and walk away style. So on that page, you'll be running Demolish, Conditioning, or Second Wind. Conditioning if you're super confident, Second Wind if you're not, and then Overgrowth with Precision Secondary, Cut Down, and Alacrity. And on every page you take, always going to be Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and either Scaling or Flat HP, depending on how confident you are in the matchup. I'd say Flat HP is better most of the time, especially in volatile ones, because you're going to be playing quite aggressive early game, but if you feel like your matchup's just free, then of course feel free to run Scaling HP. Now for the Fleet rune page, one thing I do want to say on this, I disagree with this rune page. Some Teemo one tricks take it occasionally into range matchups like a Aurora or a Kennen, so heavy poke lanes where you're probably not going to proc PTA, and I understand why, but Fleet for a range champion is just way too nerfed. It doesn't really give you enough HP, it's mainly for the movement speed, I'd say. So I would say it's better to go PTA anyway for those rare opportunities you get where you do get extended trades, and for skirmishing and team fighting as well. I think Fleet is just not needed, but if you're unconfident and you've been getting shit on by a lot of Auroras and Ken and stuff like that, you can run Fleet as a bit of a safety net with Absorb Life as well. And then on that tree, just the Alacrity with Cut Down, and then you can take Sorcery, Secondary Scorch, and the Celerity for extra movement speed, and same rune shards as well. Now, for the secondary runes, I would say most of the time, they're going to be very consistent to what you see on the screen right now. So we'll talk mainly about the PTA page, as that's going to be your default. So Demolish and Bone Plating into heavy all-in lanes, like a Jax or a Riven, something like that. But you can go Overgrowth if you want to scale a bit better, or Second Wind if they have room to break your Bone Plating very easily. I do recommend keeping Demolish on them. I feel like it really ties into Teemo's identity in the early and the mid game. He's a champion that can do quite well with breaking plates, getting your opponent low, and then to the point where they can't all-in you. And then also in the mid game as well, that kind of suits his strategy, but we'll touch on that when we review a mid game from our Teemo players. But you can swap out the Resolve Secondary if you want to have a bit of extra scaling. So if you're very confident in your matchup, you can run Sorcery with Gathering Storm and Celerity, or some Teemo players like Nimbus Cloak and Celerity for extra movement speed. That's also fine as well. So if you're in a matchup or a game where mobility is going to be extremely important, maybe like an Aatrox or something like that, you can swap out Gathering Storm for Nimbus Cloak. That's going to be perfectly fine and give you a bit of extra movement speed to dodge his skill shots and space them. But I would say, even though this rune page does scale better, the movement speed and Gathering Storm, not having Demolish is a bit harmful, because the way you want to be playing your lane on Teemo is, of course, poking your opponent down and getting tower plates and blowing up that tower. He's not really a champion that lets the wave come back in, freeze and run people down, anything like that. He's not really a champion you pick to scale on, but if you feel like you're going to win the lane anyway, you feel really confident, or you're in one of these matchups where movement speed can be quite important, you can run Sorcery as your secondary, but I'd say your default should be the Demolish with either Bone Plating or Second Wind, depending on the matchup, or a little bit of Overgrowth if you feel like Bone Plating is just useless. Moving on to Summoner spells, and this one's relatively straightforward. You can just run Ignite and Flash every single game no matter what. You never run TP on this champion. There has been a little bit of experimenting from our NA teamer. He likes to run Exhaust into champions like Riven, who have really good all-in, and Barrier into range top laners like Vlad or Kennen to survive their all-in. Now, personally, I think Barrier is kind of trash. I don't recommend that, but I do see the value in Exhaust, especially into champs like Riven, maybe even into Kennen as well, to block his all-in, not just the 1v1, but for team fighting, it can have a lot of value. But just straight up default to Ignite Flash, and that's going to work in every single matchup that you play. And you don't really need to change out these for anything, but Exhaust can work in the right situations. Moving on to our item builds. Now, there's not much variety in terms of building on Teemo, keeps it pretty simple, but there are some differences between what our Korean Teemo players like to build and our NA ones, but we'll start with Korea. So your default build, and this is what you should be building most of the time, you're going to be starting Doran's Ring. Dark Seal is for if you're extremely confident in your matchup and you don't need the extra combat power that D-Ring will give you. It is important to note that our Korean Teemos go D-Ring probably 95-99% of the time, and our NA Teemos go Dark Seal pretty much the same thing 90% of the time, because in Korea, most of the players you verse are going to be significantly better at laning and better mechanically, so extra combat power in your lane is going to be more important. Now, for your first item, you're going to be going tier 2 boots as fast as you can. Swifty boots are amazing on Teemo, but tabbies work well if you're verse double AD top jungle, like Vi jungle and then Tryndamere top or Camille, anything like that, and Merc Treads if you're verse champs like Kennen, champs like Gragas, Mercs work really well, and Swifties will be your default. Now, for your first buy, Nash's Tooth is going to be your go-to. This is Teemo's best first item, I'd say most of the time. The exception to that is if you're just versing a comp where you're not going to be auto-attacking that much. So to visualize it, maybe you're verse Vladimir top, Kindred jungle, and then normal mid AD carry champs. You're probably not going to be auto-taking them that much, so Nash's Tooth doesn't really have that much value. In that case, you just go Liandry's as your first item. Now, for your second, Nash's into Liandry's, that's going to be your go-to, your bread and butter, but you can go the Bloodletter's Curse, as Liandry's did get a little nerf, and Bloodletter's got a buff. Now, I wouldn't go this every time. I'd say it's best in situations where you have other magic damage threats on your team, especially if you have a magic damage jungler that's going to really go hard. But other than that, Liandry's are still going to be great on you, so you don't have to really change that just because it got a 10 AP nerf. And I've got an example here of a full build, and to be honest, on Korea server, the full build really looks very different. Of course, sometimes they experiment, especially on a new patch, but in the games where they're sweating on their main accounts, this is what it's going to be, what it looks like. Swifties into Nashor's, Liandry's, Malignant, and then Deathcap Voidstaff or Deathcap the Crypt Bloom, any kind of order. If you need the magic pen early, you go the pen item first. If you don't, you go Deathcap first, but that's typically what a 6 item build looks like. Now, some variables. The variables are if they verse a healing champion in lane, like a Warwick, a Zac, those are the big two, or even like a Vlad or an Aatrox, they will go the Oblivion Orb early on, so tier 2 boots into Oblivion Orb, or if they can't afford tier 2s on their first recall, they can go Healing Cut then. But typically they like to get their boots first. That can work, but then they still don't upgrade that until really later on in the game. They just go tier 2 boots orb into Nashors. It's going to not really change them. And of course, if you verse a full range comp, the Nashors won't be there at all. You can just swap that out for the Liandry's into Malignant, and then our Pen Deathcap or Deathcap Pen. And then you can either go an item like Shadow Flame or a defensive item like Zhonya's or Banshee's, really depends on the game. Now, for our NA Teemo, so you can see not too different, but there is another build alternative. So Dark Seal Start is going to be the full scaling option. It's not that much weaker than D-Ring, to be fair, but I'd only go this as your starting item if you're completely confident in the matchup. Like, let's say you're up against a Jax, every time you verse Jax you shit on him, sure, you can go Dark Seal, you don't need to greet the D-Ring, but in these volatile close matchups, the extra combat power from D-Ring can make a difference. Now, they also prioritize the Sork boots as their top priority most of the time over Swifties. That's because they like to go the pin build, but also Swifty boots did get a nerf recently, so that's why they very rarely go tabbies or Merc Treads. They only go defensive boots on NA server, the NA teamers I've been looking at, in extreme circumstances. Like, of course, if they verse a full AD comp or a full AP comp, they'll go defensive boots, but I'd say 9 times out of 10, they typically go Sork boots unless you're in a matchup like Olaf or something where Swifties are just too OP. Now, their first item is still going to be Nashor's most of the time. They also do the thing where if they can't auto-attack in the game, so versus full range comp, they go Liandry's first item, but they have a heavier priority on Bloodletter's Curse as their second item after the buff and nerf to Liandry's, so they go that most of the time. But they do have a pin build, so the magic pin build is great in games where you're not really versus a tankier comp, so versus squishy comp, especially in a game where you're snowballing. So if you do well in your lane, and you go Nashor's into Storm Surge, that's the item name, into Shadow Flame, that type of build, you're just going to one-shot completely everything, especially with Sork Boots. Now, if you're wondering when to upgrade your Sork Boots, pretty much as soon as possible. Now, they only cost 500 gold. Of course, don't give up a full item for it, but if you base, you got like 800 gold or whatever, and you can upgrade them before a big team fight, of course, that's going to be great for you. It's not like before where you wanted to wait for 3 items before you upgrade. Now you can just upgrade whenever your gold naturally allows you to do so. So the pin build are going to be in games where you're snowballing versus full squishy comps, but if not, if you're versus like a Renekton, Cassandra, anything like that, then you just do the standard build with Nashes into a item like Leandri's or Bloodletter's Curse, depending on your team comp, and then you round off the build with very similar items as before. Now, one thing to note as well, because they go Dark Seal start, they go Medjay's a lot more often. Same reasoning, I'd say, as the pin build. If you're snowballing, if you're 4-0, 3-1, something like that, and you got 9, 10 stacks of Dark Seal, you can just upgrade that. Really good item on Teemo, as he really abuses the extra movement speed as well. Moving on to the laning phase, and we're going to be starting by reviewing Hungshim, one of our Korean Teemos, playing up against a Renekton. And I'd say this guy's probably the best Teemo player that I've seen from a pure gameplay point of view, including the mid game and the early game. And I'd sure hope so. He's been playing Teemo in Korean solo queue for over 10 years, so definitely a good player to watch if you want to pick up a thing or two on this champion. So we can see level 1, he's going to be playing it really slowly, just nice short trades every time Renekton walks up. You really want to have that 100-0 trading mindset on Teemo, where you do damage to your opponent without really taking any in response, because most melee champions, in terms of a level 3 all-in, they're going to be favored up against you, but if you can get them low HP before that point and you're high HP, they're going to be too scared to all-in you, or they're going to die to your all-in with Ignite. So we can see really slowly playing it. Just last inning, another thing to prioritize on Teemo is farming well. A lot of Teemo players that I see, they will poke you down a lot, but then they have 6 out of 12 CS, so it doesn't really matter that much. As long as you get around 8 to 9, regen with D-Shield second wind, you're going to be fine. You can see here 12 out of 12 on the first 2 waves, and still managed to poke down Renekton a little bit, so not too bad. And now that the wave is near the tower, poking him down as much as he can. So the reason I started with this one, I want to touch on the wave control for a range champion like Teemo, and how it differs from a melee. So normally, if you're playing a melee champion, let's say Jax or Camille, if you don't crash a wave cleanly, wave 2 or wave 3, your lane is ruined because the wave will be stuck right here, cast minions under tower, and you can't really get the wave in for another 2 or 3 waves, and that makes it really impossible for you to trade or really just farm safely. But on a champ like Teemo, you actually want to crash it in an uglier way. So here you can see the melees are under tower, but they're not too deep under tower to the point where Teemo can't auto attack. So every time he gets a melee minion, Teemo can hit him. But if you visualize him crashing the wave cleanly, the melee minions under tower here, it's way harder for him to get a cheeky auto attack off every wave. And it also means the caster minions are not tanking tower, which means it takes a lot longer for them to stay here. So every time he walks up for a farm, and to get 1, he'll get poked 2 or 3 times, where if they're under tower, he can just kind of walk up, get 1 or 2 at a time. So Teemo can keep the wave here for longer, drawing Renekton away from the tower, but still maintaining prio himself. So we can see every time Renekton walks up for a minion, he's going to get auto-attacked or auto-queued. 2 points in E here as well. No need to get W, as he doesn't really need to kite anything. So we can just see every time this Renekton walks up, he's going to take an auto or an auto-queue. And we can see the good use of the bone plating there. So I'd say bone plating should be your default. And as I say that, you can see the all-in. So how did he see this timer? So on Teemo, you need to be able to calculate the E damage on top of Ignite. And that's exactly what he does here. So Renekton goes for the combo here. 1 auto attack, and you can see procs PTA, so enhanced damage, into Ignite auto Q, and then just lets him bleed out from Ignite and Poison. So even though level 1 and 2, to be honest, he barely did any damage to this Renekton. He played well, he got maintained high CS, he got a lot of damage onto him when the wave was here, good wave control, and then he was able to punish him and see that slight window where he could have gone for the flash all in and bleed him out with his damage over time. So one thing to note as well, before we move on to our next matchup, your back timer. You're going to see it in pretty much every Teemo matchup that we watch. They are really good at their recall timers. The reason that's important, Teemo's a no TP champ with bad wave clear and no sustain. If you miss your recall timer, your lane is completely over. So if you're planning to work on your Teemo or add it to your pool, your back time has to be one of your top priorities. And you can see the second he killed Renekton, he's basing straight away because he knows Renekton's going to TP back to lane, and if I miss my back timer, my lane is over. Moving on to a more difficult matchup, this game he's playing up against an Mbessa in Grandmaster. And one thing that I want to note for level 1, look at his standing position. He's guarding this bush. So he's standing in an area where she can't see him from this bush, of course going invisible, but he can see her enter it. So you can see it, she enters level 1, he notices that she went in there, so now he knows he wants to zone her from approaching the wave like this. So we'll see if we speed up to the minion wave. It's really uncomfortable for Mbessa to approach and get XP, so Teemo's just standing here guarding, making it really uncomfortable for her. So I'll put it back to God Vision, and you can see when the minions get low, she has to walk up for farm, and that's how our Teemo player is allowed to trade. So you pretty much always start Q level 1 on Teemo for a couple of reasons. First of all, so they can't trade onto you back, of course, with auto attacks, so there's more 100 to 0 trading style, stay high HP yourself, not take damage in return, but also it's just a lot easier for a quick trade, so auto Q is a lot easier than trying to get multiple auto attacks down with your E, especially if your opponent uses bush as well, like most top laners should. So we see here, a little short trade, same thing as a Renekton matchup, stay high HP yourself, get them as low as possible, but versus Mbessa, staying full HP is not going to be possible, as she does have some trading tools of her own. So goes and gets a ward down because the Lee Sin's a really popular level 3 ganking champ, so he didn't want to fall for that, and then just really slow pushing this wave. So we can see here, he's got 10 out of 12 CS, so missed a couple here for the trade, but not the end of the world, and still relatively high HP himself. So Kai's out to dodge the Mbessa Q2, and now he's going to be walking up while her Q is down and looking for a trade. But you can see he's prioritizing getting perfect farm over like chasing her down the lane and trying to get one auto attack and missing a couple CS. He normally prioritizes consistent farming and then short trading during that downtime, especially when the wave is near their side of the tower. So we can see he's playing slow, auto-taking her yet again every time she walks up for farm, and then he's going to be pulling this wave back near the center as far back as he can, and then yet again. So pops invisibility to get the attack speed when he pops out of stealth, and then just still short trades. You can see even though he popped out of stealth, he was invisible, he had extra attack speed, he wasn't trying to auto-take her 3 or 4 times, because he would tank way too much damage from the minion aggro. You're going to be versing 90% of the time Doran Shield second win champions, most likely, so it's not worth getting low HP yourself. So Mbessa goes in for the trade here, he goes for the retrade. An important skill on Teemo to note is retrading. So if we compare these two trades, back to back, right now he stood invisible. Why did he not chase her down on her side? The obvious answer, the minion wave is here. So if he chased her and kept hitting her, even proc PTA, the wave would completely decimate him. But on this trade, she went onto him, on his side of the wave, so it's a lot easier for him to retrade onto her, chase her down, and not really take that much minion aggro at all, just from these two here. So definitely a worthwhile trade. So really important to note the position and the size of the waves to dictate how big of a trade you can get when your opponent walks up or goes onto you. But we can see here, still, even though he has been playing quite well, he is versus Mbessa, a pretty balanced champion, and he has taken a lot of damage, so he's going to have to look for his recall timer shortly. So he gets a nice short trade there, pushes in this wave, and as long as she's too low to go onto him without dying to the all-in ignite, he's fine. So imagine he didn't get the amount of harass that he did, and he has this much HP, he would have to be really careful. So this is what I talked about last game in terms of the prioritizing back timer. He knows she's going to back and TB back to lane, so if he misses his back timer, his game's going to be over. Pretty sure it's on the next recall here. Goes for the all-in here. So right now she walks up, auto attack. So just like the one before, goes for the all-in kill. So auto Q, flash, auto ignite, hits the tower by mistake there. So just missing out on that solo kill. But you can see a really common pattern for him, just like he did versus Renekton, except this time he hit the tower on accident. So you can see straight away, he knows any player here is going to recall. She can't walk up without dying. So straight away, he tries to match the recall as fast as humanly possible to make sure he's not in a situation where she TPs back to lane and he misses out. Although Jiang did ego him, so this was quite good by him. If we see Teemo's vision, he waited and roughly guessed when Teemo would recall and then appeared back into vision. So now he can greet an extra wave and get a stronger buy, even getting this wave under tower. Because if he based at the same time and TP backed, waiting that extra 16 seconds, Teemo might have been able to make it back in time to block the crash. So good mind games from Jiang, but you can see the priority for the Teemo player has to be recalling as your number one. So slow pushes the wave here, and yet again waiting for him to TP back in. So if you're curious about his buy, building towards Tabbies, of course AD top jungle, but he couldn't afford them in one swoop, so he just went boots, Tabbies, dagger, and refill. So again, short trading mindset, trying to poke it down with little trades as much as he can, and then retrading if she goes onto him. So if they trade onto you, you have to make it really painful for them. So we can see here by this ulti placement, you pretty much don't want to be trying to just lob an ulti at someone's head. It's pretty rare it's going to hit them. You want to ulti the minions nearby them so that the AoE pop on the shroom hits him as well. So that's what he did there. One extra, and then chases her down the lane. So in this situation, it's okay to tank the minion aggro, because you know the trade is going to be worthwhile. She's slowed from the Teemo shroom. He's got mobility advantage as well with boots and W, so he can chase her down the lane. One thing you'll notice as well, when she went onto him, he didn't use his W straight away. You don't need to use your W until the very last moment where they're about to escape, and you need that extra movement speed to catch up. So holds W this entire time. keeps autoing her, and then pops W now just before she got out of his auto attack range to consistently get more damage down. So really good use of abilities there, ulti and W especially. So hard shoves this wave, doesn't want her to recall, that's why he pushed her quickly, sees that she stays, so he knows, okay, I want to start to play aggressive, so I'll get a ward down ahead of time, and eat some fruit as well. So comes back to lane here. So you notice with his mushrooms, he's not just randomly chucking them in all the bushes like a lot of Teemo players do. He's holding onto them for trading. So she goes onto him here. Even on this time, he didn't chuck a mushroom because he just knew she was going to disengage it with her hops. There's no point wasting it because the cooldown of mushrooms is quite high early game. You don't want to be wasting it for no reason. Not just, warding the bush and stuff like that, because against good players, they're not going to just walk in and tank a shroom for no reason. So better for him to hold it for a skirmish. But puts one there just so he has an avenue to disengage into if he got all in by her. So you always want to have at least one mushroom down that you can play with. So you can see if she walks up for the farm, he's going to walk up, but then he completely disengages and drops the minion aggro. So goes for the ulti there, good juke by him, good sidestep, and again, punishing her for trying to trade onto him. But he doesn't want her to get that recall off, so he's just hard shoves, but because she has T-Shield Second Wind, if you're curious about Second Wind, definitely around 400, I would say, 600 even, so really performing it. If you ever verse Teemo, you need this rune or it's completely unplayable. So here he backs off, has to respect the Lee Sin, which gives him best an opportunity to hard shove this wave, and then he cheeses there. He sits there out of vision, waits, knows that she's going to walk up. He saw her gameplay from before, where she fake recalled and walked back up to get the wave in, so he just knows this is a greedy top laner, stays in the bush, and he's able to pick up a nice solo kill here. So really smart play by him. So I'd say the main things that impressed me with the way he played this matchup versus broken champion and a good player playing the champion is definitely going to be the entire time he was doing his best to maintain high HP and chip away at her, because you saw how much value he got from second wind alone. That's not even including Doran's shield. So if he took a bit more damage than he did in this lane, he wouldn't have been in a situation where he could just consistently keep her stuck under tower and bleeding out as well as he did, and of course valuing your recall timer as your number one. Moving on to the Shen matchup, and this champion's quite popular at the moment, so definitely a good time to work on your Teemo skills, as it's a pretty hard matchup for Shen. And our Teemo player we're watching is actually Untara, who used to play on T1. Now he's a full Teemo one trick. So he went from playing with Faker to just ruining everyone's day in solo queue with this champion. So quite a funny turn of events. But the way he plays the matchup is going to be very similar to what we've seen before. Now, one thing he does differently, he normally pushes a lot faster than our other Teemo player, and he still goes for the nice short trades, 100 to 0 trading style, which makes sense. Now, I'm not a big fan of the fast pushing for no reason. In my opinion, it's better to make sure you get prior, but that you build the biggest wave possible, a nice slow push into a wave 3 crash, or an awkward wave 2 crash if you have to, and you don't really want to be hard shoving it for no reason, so I feel like he could have slowed down his damage a little bit more, but it's still going to be fine. So he slow pushes the rest of this wave here, and of course you can see he didn't hard push wave 2, but it's not as nicely crashed as it was up against that Renekton, where he had a lot of room to auto attack. Now it's a little bit awkward, but still, when Shen walks up for the caster minions, he's going to be able to get some auto attacks down, and as long as he can pull the wave a little bit out, it's going to be fine as long as he gets those nice short trades every time Shen walks up. So you can see still full HP here, and he's got 12 out of 13 farm, so similar in the mindset of maintaining good CS and not really getting low yourself. So he goes and gets a ward down just in case he gets 3 camp by Lee Sin. A little bit late for a 3 camp gank, to be honest, so he could have warded a little bit earlier, but maybe he was worried about Lee Sin doing a full clear into top gank, so that's what it would spot. So we can see here, yet again, every time you walk up, I'm going to auto take you and drop the minion aggro straight away. No greeting that extra second auto, anything like that, and tanking the cannon wave. You want to maintain your full HP. So similar as well, 2 points in E, no W until level 4, unless you absolutely need it in your matchup. Maybe an Olaf's going to all in you or something like that. But for the most part, you'll very rarely ever need W, so you can just do 2 points in E. So we can see here, pretty standard, is auto-attacking him every time he walks up, and then walking backwards into the bush to drop that minion aggro. If you're playing up against Teemo, make sure you have this bush warded as much as you can, so that he can't drop the minion aggro without running all the way back here. So the minions follow him in, and that gives you room to see it. So some of you notice that he poked the Shen who walked up, and the Shen E'd away. So he's going to be using that opportunity. While Shen has no E, gets his attack speed from passive, and then walks up and goes for a demolish proc here. So if Shen has no taunt, of course, really easy to just ignore his damage and hit the tower. So already getting a tower plate 4 minutes into the game. So a really good start. And now Shen has to recall. He's way too low HP. But your back timer has to be your top priority, especially on this champion. So he one-shots the wave and matches the recall himself here. So he went for boot into recurve bow. as he couldn't afford tabbies on that recall, so better just to chip away at his Nash's Tooth buy. So comes straight back to lane and goes for the trade straight away from Shin. This is smart by Shin. You want to be trying to get your trade full HP versus full HP if you can before the Teemo gets you low, but unfortunately all of Shin's damage is auto attacks, and Teemo was able to buffer the Q just before he got taunted here. Actually, no, he didn't. Oh, yeah, he did, sorry. The buffer the Q through the taunt so that Shin couldn't get any extra auto attacks from the Shin Q. So he goes and gets a pink ward down. So really important that if you can buffer Q through CC, like a Jack stun, a Shin taunt, whatever it may be, so that they can't hit you while you're unable to move. So here we can see Shin walks up, tanks 3 autos into Q. If you can, you want to be trying to get your Q on the very last hit after you proc PTA to get that bonus damage and not miss out on any potential auto attacks, as it's a lot easier to cancel your auto attack animation with your Q than the reverse. So Shin backs off, chooses to base as well, so Untara here just slow pushes the wave and goes for a Demolish proc. Now I really like what he did next here, so he proc Demolish and walked up. He's trying to make Shin tank him all the way back to lane, so it's pretty much the same as Shin being here. He has a lot of room to run him down the lane here, and he can keep himself safe by keeping a mushroom on the minions here. So if Shen taunted onto him, he would tank the mushroom explosion and get run down. But he tanked it anyway and got chased down by Teemo. So now he just gets back to lane half HP already. And Teemo's able to pick up a tower plating as well. So you can't really clear the wave without any mushrooms available to. So you had to drop it down. But still really good way to punish Shen just coming back to lane. So you can see a lot of the Teemo players, they're trying to get attack speed from the passive before they walk up, so that they can abuse when Shin does walk up for the custom minions here. But Shin has learned his lesson. He knows every minion has attacks, so he has to play a lot more respectful here. So one-shots his wave and goes for another trade onto him. So I'm not a fan of what he did here. It's better to stack 2 waves at a time as a normal pattern, because now he's only got 4 minions to really work with to poke the Shin down. It's still going to be fine, but if he stacks a bigger wave, then Shin's going to have to get punished more when he walks up a farm, and you have a lot more breathing room to hit the tower as well. So he goes for the wave here, and Shin eventually, after one more rotation of this, is going to have to base, goes and gets his ward down and the fruit, comes back to lane, and Shin saw, because Teemo got fruit and this is his cannon wave, his only time to recall, so Teemo just one-shots the wave. Now, we have to cut the lane a bit early, as Shin was having such a bad time, the bot lane swapped, but you can see just from the way he was playing out as champion, the concepts that we talked about, 30 CS gap in this lane, without even needing to solo kill him or receive any ganks. For our final example, we have our NA Teemo Taiji playing up against a Vladimir. So I wanted to showcase an example of how he plays up against a range matchup and how it differs from the melee versus range that we've seen so far. So we can see level 1, he checked every bush to see if Vladimir was in there, and then sits in this exact spot here, level 1, and goes invisible. So this is really important, especially versus weak level 1 range champions that can't really fight you in extended trades, like a Vlad. Lets the wave come in all the way, and as soon as it settles down, it's go time. So auto attacks him, and you can see straight away after hitting him, he clicked backwards instantly to not draw any aggro from these caster minions here. So keeps auto attacking him the whole time, clicking back towards the tower and making him run through you. Now, in terms of priorities, if you do this strategy, the number 1 priority is getting your own experience, and then zoning his experience has to be priority 2. We can see he's standing in the right place. He's definitely done this a couple of times before, and gets all of his XP here while poking down the Vlad, and Vlad got none of that XP from the first 3 minions. But when the wave comes in again, wave number 2, you have to chill in the bush, let it settle down, and then it's go time for round 2. So chases Vlad down here, wards that bush, and now it's zoning him from reaching back from the wave. So Vlad has to walk around the walk of shame back and no experience at all. So I would say pretty much a perfect level 1 from him, how you can play up against these range top laners that can't really contest you in the level 1 like a Gnar or a Vlad. So yet again, good ward by Vlad here, but it doesn't matter. Sits in the bush, goes invis, and then walks behind him, making it really uncomfortable for Vladimir to ever walk up. And you can see he's just barely last sitting here, just getting the minions when they're as low as possible, because he doesn't want to push the wave and let Vladimir heal and farm under tower. But of course, because he was playing aggressive and he was trading and farming, it is going to push towards the Vlad, so it is going to be inevitable. But you can see level 3 versus 1 at this point, with relatively the same looking XP bar, so definitely a massive advantage already. So level 4 versus 1 goes for the trade here. pops invisible, and now because of Vlad's range, of course he can farm from back there. But every time he walks up from a custom minion and gives the Teemo auto range, of course he's going to be taking it there. So drops the wave in. He killed this wave quickly to make the next wave bounce out, so Vladimir can't heal and farm under tower, but of course the jungler is going to ruin our day. Comes top, but he is able to survive this gang. So utilizing the bushes really well there, jukes out with W, and then just has to recall. So Vlad was in a completely unplayable situation, so if the jungle matched that, you can imagine what would have happened, but he's still going to be fine. So picks up tier 1 boots and refill, comes straight back to lane. Notice he did that with a Dark Seal start as well, so full greedy even though he's planning to play that aggressive. Really common for our NA Teemos to go Dark Seal start and just full greed even if the matchup is volatile. So tries to block the wave from crashing, kites out the Vladimir Q2. Notices Vladimir uses pull, so it's time to go. So goes for the all-in. His Nunu is coming as well. So really easy solo kill, or not solo kill, really easy kill for him. So we're in this review here. I can say the main takeaway is the way he played his 1-3, his game plan was pretty much pixel perfect here. There's not much Vlad could have done about this. So I would say if what Vlad could have done is actually bring up his team level 1, guard around run 10, and like fight the Teemo off when he tries to do this. Other than that, not a lot you can really do about it in terms of 1v1. So you can definitely replicate this if you're planning to play Teemo into these weak level 1 champions. Moving on to the mid game, and we're going to use an example from one of our Korean Teemos, Hongshim, as in my opinion he has the best understanding of how to use his champion in the mid game and get a lot of value from it. So we can see in this game, it's relatively close. His team is slightly winning up about 2k gold, and he's quite strong in his matchup. So the way you typically want to play the mid game on Teemo, the formula, it's pretty similar to a lot of champions, but if you can make progress inside 1v1, you want to do so. If not, you rock up to an objective fight early and set up. Now Teemo is one of the best setups in the game, so when you're setting up for a top tier 2 for example, you can completely cover the jungle in vision and in mushrooms, and same thing if you rock up to a dragon, so it really just depends. But in this game here, the Yorick is so far behind that he can make progress 1v1 inside, so that's how he's going to be playing it out. Now, that doesn't mean he never groups up, as we're going to see shortly in this review. So here, we're just trying to poke him down as much as he can to give himself breathing room to break the tower. Yorick goes for the all-in, and unfortunately, even though he's got Triforce and his Maiden, not even close. So now he's going to be looking to make some progress here. So breaks the tier 1, goes for the next wave as well, and now he starts to set up. So he has to recall here, of course, before Yorick gets back to lane. So he bases, picks up his blood letters, and heads straight back to top. So we can see here, comes through the jungle right away to get some mushrooms down ahead of time, and then he needs to make sure he gets prio. So he's a little bit scared here of Fiddle, as he saw Fiddle on vision, pretty sure. It's getting pinged out, so he's setting up a bit of vision around the Rift Herald here. So setting up vision not just for himself, but for the objective fight as well. So goes back top, gets his wave in, and you'll notice he doesn't really spam his mushrooms on the wave that much. He does sometimes put a mushroom down if he's fully loaded, but here you can see, even though he could have shroomed the wave, he's holding onto it for this potential skirmish or setup here. So we'll put it on his vision, comes in to follow up his support, and of course going to poke down this Yorick, and then back to the wave. So you'll see in the lane as well, and in mid-game too, the Teemo players are quite careful with how they put down their mushrooms, where I'd say probably 99% of the Teemo community, they just toss out their mushrooms whenever it's up, and just any bush that they can see. He's being a bit more deliberate with it, so fully coating the jungle here in mushrooms, which allows him to play for the tier 2 a lot more easily, and no way the enemy team can play for that objective as well. So one more mushroom as well for good measure, and then straight back to top. So pushes in this wave here, and now he's going to be looking to make progress 1v1. So remember our formula. If you can make progress inside 1v1, you do that. If not, you play for the fight. Here he can make progress, that's why he's not going to be joining this dragon. But if he was behind or in a different matchup, where he couldn't make progress realistically, he would go for this dragon fight. So drops the Herald, blows up this tier 2, and then kites back to this room tier. So no way Yorick can really chase him through the mushroom field, so he's relatively safe. You can see he's playing on the kind of edge here. If you chase me, you have to run through my mushrooms. He knows he's pretty safe here, and nothing Yorick can really do about it. So takes out the Maiden, kites out the Yorick E as well, and then just pops his W, his Ignite, and boosts away from the skank here. So Calf disrupts the ulti, able to pick up the Yorick kill, and then just spacing straight away. So now next objective is going to be Atakan in about a minute, so we'll see how he plays around that. So building the healing cut, because Yorick has insane healing, and also their whole comp has a little bit of healing mixed in, especially Fiddle, and looking to build up his Leandries as his third item. So this game, he has a lot of magic damage, which is why he went Bloodletters. He's got 80 carry Calthus and is their mid, so really good itemization from him as well. And of course, the Nash's Tooth really good in this matchup, especially when you have strong split pushes. So here he goes mid initially. You'll notice he does this type of thing a lot, where he drops a mushroom and lies in wait, specifically near jungle camps as well. But in this situation, he had the opportunity to walk up into the tower, so that's better than guarding raptors, so goes for the raptor camp as well. Teemo's quite good, I'd say underrated at eating camps. Just one mushroom and you can take them out, especially you can blind like the Gromp and the big golem, stuff like that, and not take that much damage, and that's something he does a lot as well. So completely warding up the jungle with his mushrooms here, sitting up ahead of time for this Artican fight. So I'd say a lot of the time, he does a mix of both, but if you put your mushrooms here in really obvious spots, people are going to sweep their way in. But if you put them back here, a little bit earlier than people typically use their sweeper, a lot of the time you can catch them off guard and chunk them before the fight. So holding this area here, setting up mushrooms everywhere, and looking to play for this Artican. He can't make progress bottom, of course, because it's next to Artican, so the enemy team will gank him and kill him, and nothing left to do top, so better for him to rock up to this objective fight early, set up his mushrooms, and play for the fight. So goes on the GP here with his Leona, easy front to back. Most of the time on Teemo, you're pretty rarely going to be flanking. You just play a nice front to back style. You're just kind of another backline 80 carry for your team, except for you have the advantage of setting up around the objective with your mushrooms. So that's normally what he does in his team fighting. Big reason why I'm not going to cover team fighting in that much detail unless it comes up here, because it's pretty much just playing a front to back. Doesn't really take much more thinking than that. So basing here, going for his Leandries, can't quite afford it yet, and then looking to head straight back to top. So next objective now is Dragon, so you typically want to be opposite side of that. So he goes top initially to create some pressure, and then you'll look to rotate to this Dragon later on if he can't play for the tier 3. So pushes in top, goes to set up some mushrooms in the area, takes out the Fiddlesticks thing first. So you can see he normally changes the spots a bit before he put them around here. Here he put them in these chokes, again a little bit earlier than people typically use their sweeper. So a high chance he can catch people off guard with them. He pushes in this wave now, and this is too hard to play for tier 3 without dying. They can just gank him from any direction here. So better for him to play a little bit more conservative, just play for his item and rock up to this dragon on time. He pushes in the wave, they gank for him, it doesn't really matter that much. Pushes in top, and here he decided he can play for the tier 3. Of course, mid and jungle are dead, there's no way he can get ganked by Fiddle, and he saw the Nautilus earlier on as well, around bottom, so he knows he's got a bit of freedom to poke this Yorick under tower and play for that. He pushes in the wave here, goes for the tower. So pretty good by him. So you can see the formula you need to follow for mid-game on Teemo. If you can make progress 1v1, look to do that. If not, rock up to the objective early, get your mushrooms down in all the area, and then play for that fight. So here, yet again, he's going to be pushing in around top. Baron and Dragon's up next, so he'd rather play for Baron. Sets up vision. I really like this from him. Air Dragon doesn't really matter that much. Not much point him going all the way here and getting all this set up around Dragon. Better for him to set up around the major objective, around Baron. So he goes for the attack onto Yorick, his mid laner TPs in to help him, and now he just goes for the fight with his half the Seer, playing it quite slowly. So you can see in terms of positioning, the value needs to be on keeping yourself alive, especially in a game where you're fed like this, over doing maximum DPS or whatever. It's really hard for him to auto-attack or their zone control, so he was playing relatively safe there. His Karthus might have died, but it's better for him to prioritize his own life and then come in at this type of opportunity when there's just zero risk in him dying. So I'd say that should be your number one rule for team fighting. Value your positioning as the number one. As I say, that gets killed straight away. But it's more of a 5v3. Not a lot he could have done in that situation. You can see his kind of mindset back here. When they had all that zone control, he was valuing himself, staying alive, trying not to take that much damage, over maximizing DPS or trying to save Karthus, anything like that. So after he dies, we'll skip ahead to the respawn here. Come straight to Baron out of base. Stacks up mushrooms as many places as he can, and then he just plays for this objective. So relatively straightforward, rocking up to an objective early, covering it in shrooms. If they come in, you play for the fight. If they don't, you just kill the objective. And that's sort of the formula you're going to be following on Teemo in the mid to late game, and that should work for you consistently.